Hi everybody, this is Noelle from Petitti Garden Centers, and it's fall and it is ornamental grass time. Now, we want to do a spotlight here, so we're going to tell you all the wonderful things about ornamental grasses, but I'm going to tell you there are just so many wonderful reasons why you should be growing them out in the landscape. They are very, very adaptable to our clay soils. They mostly grow in drier conditions, but some of them can actually grow in a little bit wetter conditions. They mostly grow in full sun conditions. Some can take a little bit of shade, lighter shade or part shade. So I'm going to introduce you to all those. They can make a specimen, a privacy screen, all those great things. So we're going to talk about that today. But let's start out with your sunlight requirements. And as I mentioned, most of these grasses next to me, they really do appreciate full day of sun, which is 6 or more hours of direct sunlight on them, okay? I wouldn't necessarily recommend them for the north side of a home, close to the home, like as a foundation planting. That's not where they're going to want to be. You're going to get very, very little direct sun on those. But as long as you get a good open eastern exposure, western exposure, or southern exposure, no problem. They're going to love that, okay? The second thing about their soil is they really can tolerate a lot of different soil conditions, poor soil conditions, in fact, but you've got to be careful with clay soils. You do still want to amend your soil before you're planting, and then just make sure that it's draining in that area. Yes, some can take a little bit more moisture than others. I'm going to say our native grasses, so I'll introduce you to those. They can take a little bit more, a little bit extra, if you will. But most of them are going to want that drier, well-drained condition there. So just make sure you improve the area, raise the area. That's always going to be best for them. Another thing about soil conditions is really nutrients. And again, as I mentioned, poor soils, they really don't need a lot of fertilizer, okay? They don't need heavy feedings, really. And I hate to say it, but it's true. If you want to apply a plant tone, like a slow release granular fertilizer to the grasses early spring, that's really all they need. So you don't really need to feed them like we feed a lot of our other blooming perennials. And they really are considered a perennial plant. Don't get me wrong, there are some grasses out there that are annual varieties as well. But the perennial varieties like you see here, they really do not need that fertilizer in great amounts at all. So keep that in mind as well. Very easy, very low maintenance as far as that's concerned. And as we move into maintenance, I will have to say, you don't have to do a lot with these plants. First year, if you can keep them watered, that 1 inch of water 1 time per week, that slow, deep watering, that's going to be great to get those root systems established. Again, they're grasses, folks, so they're going to establish pretty well, pretty quickly for you. Some of the native varieties establish very deep root systems, so that's great. But I'm going to say with that watering, that's just that initial first growing season, okay? That first year in the ground. After that, you can really let them go and do their thing. The other thing that we always get questions about is, when do I cut them back? Well, for us, grasses are really a great fall and winter interest plant. So we prefer to keep them up over the late growing season into winter, so there's something to look at. That's one of their great attributes. But if you don't, and they get floppy or they get heavy snow on them, it's okay to cut them back. It won't hurt anything. But normally we say cut them back in late winter, very, very early spring. Usually we're talking about March when we get a nice kind of mild day, and you can go out there and you want to cut back as low as you can go, right down to the soil level, okay? The reason being is if you leave all of those grass stems on that plant, like other perennials, they want to just totally regenerate their body, their leaves, and all of that new growth. So you leave those stems on there, all of that new growth has a hard time pushing through the old, okay? So that's why they are really a good perennial plant, where you're removing all of that old foliage and just letting them fill out from there, okay? If you want to cut back in the fall, again, you can cut back in the fall. What we like to do with grasses sometimes, it makes it a little bit easier maintenance wise, is that in the fall, if you want to bundle them with some twine, I'm just going to hold on to this Prairie Dropseed, but you could go ahead and bunch them up, tie them with a piece of twine very tightly, and then you have kind of a little haystack, if you will. And then when you go in that late winter, early spring and go out there and cut, you already have your bundle tied. You can take that bundle and go ahead and compost, what have you. Okay, so keep that in mind too, maintenance wise. Makes your life a little bit easier when you're cutting back. With dividing grasses, they're not necessarily easy to divide, folks. They really are, they have a very, very strong fibrous root system. And so it's almost best to kind of dig around the whole clump, lift that clump, okay? And then what you're gonna do is you can take 2 pitchforks, twine them together in the center and kind of pull apart. And you can also do the method where you cut the grasses in kind of pie wedges, because it's the outer rim of the grasses that have the most active growth to them. And if you can cut back your grasses, especially if you're starting to see kind of the center dry and deaden out and you have this active ring on the outside, but the inside is all bare, that's a good indication that you do need to divide them. So again, grab some help when you're doing that. It's not necessarily the easiest division job at all. And most of the time we talk about dividing grasses or dividing perennials the opposite season that they're blooming. So most of these grasses are blooming right now in fall. So make sure that you're taking care of that division in the springtime. It's really a great time to do it because you've just cut everything back. You have a nice low clump. You can see the outside of that clump, if you will. Just dig around and go ahead and divide, okay? So that's a good one too. Now, with grasses, there are so many different wonderful attributes about them. And I think one of the best ones I had mentioned is their fall and winter interest. So if you're looking to add a little bit more just oomph to the fall and winter landscape, do it. Definitely pick some of your favorite grasses and go ahead and plant. They are wonderful privacy screens, especially the taller varieties, so they can give you a great tall hedge for 3 seasons out of the year, okay? And that would be summer, fall, and winter. So that's a really nice thing too. They are lovely as a perennial backdrop. So if you just need a nice green or kind of solid wispy backdrop, they make a great backdrop. So go ahead and plant a few grasses behind your perennial garden, okay? They are one of the best pest, deer, and bunny resistant plants out there. So if you are having trouble with different types of pests out there, large and small, try grasses. They do wonderfully as far as their pest resistance is concerned. And you see very, very little disease in them as well. So really no concerns there. Every once in a while, you might see a little bit of like a leaf spot or a mildew or a rust. Really do not worry about it. Okay. Now, with this families, all of the grass families, there are many, many types. And so I'm going to go through the families, if you will. And this is just the genera of grasses. So I'm going to start on this end, and we see these grasses a lot. These with the little tassels on them are called fountain grass. And you might call this like a bottle brush type flower or a cattail type flower or foxtail type flower. So everybody, or inflorescence, I should say. So everybody kind of has their different name for them. But these are fountain grasses. They're very popular out there. There is an annual variety that I know you have seen before that has bright burgundy leaves and has kind of a whitish tassel on it, okay? It's Pennisetum rubrum, and I should say the name of the family fountain grasses is Pennisetum. Pennisetum rubrum is that annual type grass. Unfortunately, in Northeast Ohio, it does not winter over for us. You have to bring it inside if you want to winter it over, and it's not the easiest to winter over. But that one's an annual. The rest of these that you see are perennial types. So I have Carly Rose here. Carly Rose, when she comes, she's about a 3 to 4 foot grass, and she has these beautiful light pink inflorescence, really, really pretty. She's a little bit on the drier side because she bloomed a little bit earlier in the season, probably around September, and then she kind of dries out from there. So she has kind of a bronzy seed head now. This one is real popular. This is Hamelin. Hamelin is out in the landscape. People love to use this grass. It's a little bit shorter, nice little mound. You're looking at about 2 to 3 foot tall. And then of course, these tight little inflorescence, kind of a wheat color or yellow color, really, really pretty, very, very showy. There are many other varieties. I wanted to show you Redhead behind here. Again, looks a little bit taller in the pot. It's really not. It's usually about 2 to 3 foot in the landscape. And then you have these kind of dark reddish seed heads or inflorescence as well. Now, there are other varieties, and I'm going to tell you, Little Bunny is probably one of the most popular of the Pennisetum family. So again, all of those fountain grass all have that same kind of inflorescence or seed head on them. So you can identify them very, very well. These grasses love sun, love drier areas. I wouldn't put them in shade. I wouldn't put them in moisture areas. So keep that in mind. This grass and this one are in the same family. They are Calamagrostis, okay? And Calamagrostis is also known as feather reed grass, okay? When they bloom, and they're the earliest to bloom out of all of these ornamental grasses that we grow in Northeast Ohio, they have these straight kind of weedy looking flowers. And you can tell these are very dry by this time of the season. You're normally seeing these inflorescence color up in late May, early June. Carl Forster is probably the most popular out of all of the Calamagrostis genera. It does have green leaves. The leaves grow up to about 2.5 feet. They have this nice little weep to them, and then they get these bright kind of pink inflorescence that come up, and then of course they dry and they change to that weedy color. Avalanche is a companion, a same family here, but Avalanche is a variegated leaf variety, just around 2.5, 2 feet tall, a little bit straighter habit, more pointy and upright. So keep those in mind if you want something a little bit earlier blooming. Now, I've got a bunch of different varieties. I have Carex or sedge grass down here. This is Blue Zinger. Blue Zinger is just lovely. Low mounded grass, maybe 6 inches tall. You'll see that the leaves will come out and make this cute little blue waterfall out there. What we love about the sedge grasses is they're pretty darn hardy. They can grow in shade, or they can grow in sun. So you can put them in both places, and they'll take a little bit more moisture out there too. Red Baron down here is called Imperata, and this is Japanese bloodgrass. And you can tell why. You have a chartreuse green grass that has those nice, beautiful red tips. This grass I've never seen it bloom, and I don't really think it does produce inflorescence for us. Stays nice and short. You're looking at about 12 to 18 inches of height with this growth. And I'll tell you, once it gets established, it can start to slowly move in the landscape, but very controllable, okay? Not aggressive like some of the other plants are. Okay. Waterfall grass, what we call Japanese Hakonechloa grass. And you'll see these, they're just so beautiful. This is a great shade grass. So if you have shadier areas, they do very, very well. I do have one that's planted in an open western exposure where I used to have a tree and I don't have that tree shade anymore. And it's doing nicely. So I'm gonna say for your shady spots, or for sunny spots, they do very, very well. They're always going to have a low kind of weeping habit to them. Very, very pretty, very ornamental in the landscape. Some can grow up to about 24 inches, others a little bit shorter and more compact. This is all gold, very pretty. And then also I have lemon zest, which is a little bit of a newer one. You've got that chartreuse green foliage and then the white striping, variegated stripe through here. There's many varieties of this type of grass, Hakone grass or Hakonechloa grass. Okay. Really pretty fescue that I have here. This is actually more of a blue-green fescue, and you can see how spiky it is, maybe only about 6 inches tall, but look at the inflorescence, okay? So this is Festuca glow sticks. Glow sticks is a newer one for us. We love it. I've been mentioning it in videos this year. Look at those fluorescence. They're so cool. So they have sort of that weedy inflorescence here, and they were bright, bright yellow when they first developed this season. Probably around July, August is when we started to really notice them flowering, but really beautiful short grass, great for those sunny, dry spots. Fescue likes that, okay? Now, I've got a native here that is called Sporobolus, okay? And this is also known as Prairie Dropseed. And this is the one that I was kind of holding up so you could tie to cut back for the season. But Prairie Dropseed is one of those grasses that has a lovely kind of weeping habit to it. It does produce these beautiful open panicles of seeds here. Gets a nice fall color, little burgundy on their stems and on their leaves. And I'm going to tell you, Dropseed is very adaptable to a lot of different areas. So again, Prairie Dropseed, it likes prairie type conditions. So they do like very open, sunny areas, well-drained soils. They can take a little bit of shade. They can take a little bit of clay, a little bit of moisture, but very adaptable because of being a native grass in this area. Okay, now I'm going to move into Panicum. Panicum is also known as switchgrass. I love the Panicum family. They're very, very reliable grasses, and they have a nice upright kind of tufted growth, if you will. The leaves grow up, and then you get these nice, beautiful panicle inflorescence on top. This one here that I have is actually Shenandoah, and Shenandoah starts out as kind of a blue-green leaf, and then as it turns, it will get more of a burgundy red tip on the foliage. And then you can see those seed heads are a little bit pinky burgundy as well. So very pretty plant. Shenandoah is no more than about, I'd say 3 foot tall with the leaf growth, and then maybe another foot with the flowering growth. So maybe 4 foot out there in the garden. They're not huge, they're not short, they're just right size right in the middle. And then I know everybody likes this one. This one's Hot Rod, and Hot Rod is just wow. It's a light green to blue leaf, and when it starts to push out, it will change color very, very quickly in the season. So you start to get that burgundy show very early, and then again, get those nice panicles of seed heads. What's great about Hot Rod is it does stay nice and compact. It's really no more than about 3.5 foot in the landscape, but again, stays nice and upright, nice and sturdy, very, very good grass to grow. And your Panicum can take light shade as well, and a little bit of moisture as well. So if you're planting something like a rain garden, they can kind of be on the edges or the margins of that rain garden, no problem. They'll really enjoy that. Okay. Now, last for the natives that I have here, I'm just going to pull it forward. This is called Big Blue Stem. Okay, this is Black Hawks. Black Hawks has very similar coloring to Hot Rod here, a little bit more purples, and the foliage on Big Blue Stem really only grows to about 2 foot, maybe 3 foot out in the landscape. You can tell they have much longer inflorescences, and we call these turkey feet because when you spread them apart, there's 3 parts. Maybe I just broke that one. Sorry. There's 3 parts to this seed head, so it kind of looks like a turkey foot, okay? Really beautiful stems, really great grass, very easy going again because it's a native variety and again can tolerate that full sun condition light shade with this one. I always think with the more colorful foliage, you want to keep them in sunnier spots just to develop better color on that foliage. But again, very adaptable with soils, can tolerate clay, and so forth. Okay. Now, the last family that I'm going to show you is the Japanese silvergrass. Some people call it maiden grass, but it's known as Miscanthus, okay? In the Miscanthus family, there are tons of varieties that are in cultivation, and I'll tell you, we've got a handful here, but there are a lot. So do your research. Now, what's interesting about Miscanthus is that it does have a lot of variation as far as color, texture, and height, okay? So make sure, again, do a little bit of research before you come. If you're looking for small all the way to tall, there's lots of varieties that'll help you with that, okay? So right behind me, and one of my favorites, and I'm just gonna push this one down, is actually Miscanthus, and this one's called Morning Light. Morning Light, you can tell, and I should tell you with Miscanthus, they always have this type of inflorescence, which we call a whisk, okay? So you'll always see this kind of seedy whisk, just like you'll always see this kind of cattail or bottle brush type of inflorescence with fountain grass. You'll always see the whisk with Miscanthus, okay? So this one, Morning Light, one of my favorites, about a 4 to 5 footer, blooms late season. It's just starting to bloom here, but has really, really fine foliage, beautiful variegated edges on it, just really beautiful. I love this grass. We recommend it quite often. In the back next to Morning Light is Oktoberfest, and Oktoberfest is kind of a late coloration of Miscanthus where it'll start to really color up. We're just starting to see some burgundy in the stems, but look at those flowers. Those flowers are nice and kind of bronzy burgundy color. So it's really quite a colorful Miscanthus, if you will. I'm by Variegatus here. Variegatus is your typical variegated Miscanthus. It has green leaves with a beautiful creamy stripe in them, so they're wonderful. I'll say Oktoberfest probably around the 5 to 6 foot mark. Variegatus right around that mark as well, maybe 4 to 5. Really, really late to flower on Variegatus. I have a banded grass down here, and this banded one is Porcupine or Strictus. So you see porcupine grass is kind of the medium height in the banded variegated variety of Miscanthus. You're looking at about 5 foot, all said and done with the flowering, really pretty silver flowers on porcupine grass, and it has a real spiky habit to it. It's gonna be really upright. Zabrinus or zebra grass is the next step up. That's a 6 to 7 footer. It has more of like a little bit of a waterfall leaf to it, but again, a little bit taller with those. I am almost sitting on this one right here, okay? And this is Little Zebra. Little Zebra, again, is a nice compact kind of weeping mound here, probably about 2 foot tall, but beautiful. Again, if you're looking for some of the banding or banded type Miscanthus, beautiful plant. Now, the rest of these are pretty much a green leaf. They have a white midrib through them, so they do give you a little bit of variegated look to the foliage. But I'm going to tell you, they change colors as we get further and further into fall. So down below, we have Little Kitten. Again, probably a 2 foot tall, nice fine clump of Miscanthus, nice silvery wisps or flowers on that one. I have Fire Dragon here, and Fire Dragon's the one that will turn purpley and then kind of reddish orange, kind of glowing in the fall. So again, we need some cooler nights to really get the pigment out and get that plant start to change color for us. Fire Dragon's going to be right around that 5 foot height there, okay? And yeah, so I'm right at the end there. This one's Fire Dragon right here too, so we've got 2 in a row. But this is all ornamental grasses, folks. You've got so many different varieties that can do so many different things for you, be a specimen in the landscape, you know, grow in the shade, give you a little bit of edging or a little bit of texture and color. There's just so many out there. We have garden guides on this topic. You can look online for more information about all the grasses we grow at PetittiGardenCenter.com, and enjoy.